No news bigger than the fact that him and his wife have just welcomed their first child into the world. Congratulations, John Gooden. Welcome and congratulations, man. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, man. Cheers. Yeah, pretty big deal for us. So, yeah, little Elodie Willow Gooden was born on the 9th, and these bags under my eye, they weren't here before that. This is a very new thing for me. I am learning a lot every step of the way. Just trying to keep a little person alive is pretty difficult.
Oh man, that's hilarious. I want to find out how you came to the name, but for people that don't know, this is the reason why you weren't really present at UFC Liverpool, because even though Brendan Fitzgerald does an excellent job, we feel like your British accent and insight was very much missed, John. It would have been good to see you at this event.
I appreciate you saying that. Look, we got a really strong team at the UFC to cover, each other and whatever, and there's enough to go around as well. But it hurt that someone else is in that seat for a Liverpool show. Anyone, it was just I desperately wanted to be there. It was historic. I had actually commentated in Liverpool before for Cage Warriors. I think it was their first show at the Echo as well, a very long time ago. So it was one of those things. The due date, because Elodie is still not supposed to be here. The 4th of June is the due date, and she came like 3.5 weeks early. So my wife said, really 2 weeks, maybe even a month before and a month after that date, she had grounded me essentially. But I had pushback on some other stuff. I probably shouldn't say, but yeah, I had pushback on some other commitments as well. So I couldn't do them. And then Liverpool was one of them. Singapore was another one. But then I did a U-turn on that and sat my wife down and said, look, I just professionally, I love my job. And it's just tough, as much as we're all a team, there's competition for this. Not just the guys that are in the UFC, but other people that want that spot as well, commentating, calling fights for the UFC. I'm very aware of that. I'm not an employee. So yeah, it was tough. But so I had to miss out on commentating the fights. I was there. I got the green light to go, and what an atmosphere. I'm sure we'll come on to it. But yes, that was the reason why. And as I've said before, I think I said this when Goldie was in Scotland. And also when Anik was doing it with Dan, it's weird because Dan and I have such a close relationship, on a UFC level, like as friends and as broadcast partners. And then you're seeing someone else.
Yeah, he's cheating on you on TV, basically.
Dining with your guy, right? It's bizarre. But I was actually hanging out with Brendan after as well. He's the first time I met him. He's a good guy.
Yep. You just mentioned something that's really interesting to me, John. You mentioned how you're not technically like a UFC employee and how you always do look at these guys sort of coming in and wanting to take your spot. Explain how that kind of works for us, because it's something that I guess a lot of fans don't really realize. I mean, when they see John Gooden, they think this guy is a fixture of the UFC. Everything's guaranteed for him, for the future. But there is a little sort of air of uncertainty at times, isn't there, when it comes to this kind of gig?
There definitely is. And I've struggled with it, if I'm honest, because I got into broadcasting for mixed martial arts. And so when I got this gig, it's like the pinnacle of what I could do. Like, I'm here. This is what I want to do. I'd like to have a crack at doing the Olympics, some kind of broadcasting for the Olympics on the BBC would probably be, if you want to be like a recognized broadcaster in the UK here, that is a great spot. But otherwise, I mean, that's like a cherry on the cake. Day in, day out, I'd never surrender what I do with the UFC or work in mixed martial arts to go and do that. That's not going to happen. So when I got offered this opportunity with the UFC, yes, they don't guarantee you any number of shows or anything like that.
Wow, so it's like a private contractor situation.
It's exactly that.
Wow.
And they can walk away from me and not ring my phone, and there's nothing I can do about it. But equally, I can, if I'm not comfortable, I can walk away without penalty as well. So not that I ever see that being an option. It's definitely the other way around. So yeah, it's tough, and I think the difference with me and the way that I approach things with the sport is because I almost feel like I'm part of the UFC team, even though I'm not. when I'm not working, I kind of get a little. I'm like, what's going on, and why aren't I getting these opportunities? But really, I'm just another body that is brought in. I have a really good relationship with the production team over in Vegas. I'd literally just got off the phone to them now, actually, because I do quite a lot of producing for the UFC, which is what keeps me ticking over financially, if I'm honest. I'm going out to produce, like I produced a feature for Darren Till. I've been out with Jimmy Manua, Alexander Gustafsson this year. I'm going out to see Leon Edwards in the next couple of days.
Nice.
So I do quite a lot of that stuff over here in Europe, and that's given me a whole new skill set, something that I really enjoy doing. And I work closely again with the producers who do the live shows as well. So it's really helped me bolster that relationship and understand what they're needing out of things. I'm super grateful for that. But people don't see that. So when conversations happen around commentators, UFC commentators, I do sometimes feel like my name's left out a little bit, which is frustrating because we all want to be recognized for the work that we're doing. Particularly,
do you mean by fans or do you mean by the UFC themselves?
Oh, not the UFC. No, I can't fault them for their commitment to me and support. I think actually sometimes from my peers, and yeah, maybe a little bit from the fans. Although I don't get a lot of hate, and I understand that I'm not going to be everyone's cup of tea because of my accent, my looks, and whatever else. But one thing I'd like people to recognize is just the work. You know, I've started grassroots here, and I don't think that any other commentator, play-by-play, can put in the amount of hours that I do always round. Like Anik is on that mic so much. He couldn't prepare for a fight card like I do, and I train it as well. Like I'm trying to pick up the physical skills to add to it, and yeah, So yeah, sometimes I feel like I'm working behind the scenes, and it doesn't pair up necessarily with being front and center and look like someone in the sport that you see a lot of. But that's down to me. That's on me. That's a personal feeling, and it's down to me to get myself out there a little bit more, which I'm trying to do at the moment. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. So it keeps us all nervous, I think, but that's broadcasting. That's not UFC specific. That's just broadcasting for you.
And obviously, there's a lot of really fun pairings right now when it comes to commentating fights in the UFC. You know, obviously Jimmy Smith's in the picture now. There's a lot of really talented guys. I know you and Dan Hardy obviously do an amazing job. John Anik is fantastic. But do you ever think about some other dynamics that you'd like to try in the future, possibly if you get an opportunity? And when you see some of these big cards overseas, in places like America, do you ever wonder if you'll get that chance? Because, I mean, I know you've got the accent, and a lot of people are like, well, you know, it's an accent, it works well for all these international shows when they go on the road. But a lot of people feel like, John, that you would be great in a big pay-per-view, for example, in Las Vegas, you know? So have you thought about that? And has the UFC ever spoken to you about even possibly getting a chance there? And also, is it kind of like fighting where if a commentator sort of gets sick or pulls out, are you on their sort of list of guys to call in case there's a last minute? Are you a bit of a Ally Quinta in that sense?
Yeah, Ally Quinta. Well, raging. Yeah, I don't have the balls that Al does. I tell you what, this weekend I made it very well known. I went to that show with a little flash stick in my pocket. I had my notes ready. I was like, if anything happens to Brendan, like I'm in. Like if my best friend decides that he's going to lock him down in the gents' toilets for an extended period of time just so that I can take that seat, then so be it. But no, seriously, I prepared about 50% of what I normally would do because I didn't see the program elements, but I did my fighter notes for Liverpool just in case. I mean, I enjoy doing it, and I just thought if the BBC were there as well. They were doing a very first radio broadcast at a UFC event, which is a big thing over here. And again, I had some interaction with people that were trying to set that up. So if anything can happen to their broadcast team, I was good to slide right in. So I have, but however, that again, that's on me. That wasn't the UFC going, you better get ready just in case. That doesn't happen. I don't have a visa to work stateside. And I think that's a big thing. So you can't just slot in. I have asked about getting a visa, and with all due respect to all parties, it's super expensive. No one. It's been an interesting time since I joined, because in the time that I've been there, there've been a lot of changes of senior staff over in Europe and international offices, and then IMG WME came in, and now we've had the new TV deal. So there's been a lot of uncertainty. So in all fairness to everyone, like, why would I commit to spending maybe $10,000 for a 3-year work visa if all of a sudden all presenters, commentators were just, a whole new stable of men and women were brought in. So until we have some kind of certainty, then I'll probably approach that conversation again. But for our sport, mixed martial arts, I think I really do need to get a visa to work stateside, even if it's not as a commentator, maybe as an analyst. Maybe I can go on the desk. I'd love to present that show. Like a pre-fight show, post-fight show. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Working with some of those characters on that'd be awesome. But right now, that's not the case. If I ever got the opportunity, I'd love to. I love the States, and I'll work with whoever. Dan and I have work to do over here. Like, that's the priority. We're trying to develop the sport in Europe, specifically in the UK, because that's what I think we can affect most significantly. And honestly, no one's working harder than Dan right now. Oh my God, that guy's schedule, what he's doing. People are recognizing what he can add, and they're taking full advantage of that. But yes, we are aligned in what we're trying to do, and we feel it's important work. But yeah, I loved working with DC. I have to say, I had just a riot with him over a few days. That was good fun. When Brian Stan was there, we did a fight card down your way over in New Zealand. Again, really enjoyed that, and kind of I think maybe I challenged him in a few different ways to what he had been challenged before in a broadcasting sense. So that was good. But yeah, look, who wouldn't want to work with the champions and the pay-per-view kings like, Joe Rogan and Jimmy Smith? Yeah, but I have important work here to do with Dan. We both believe in that, but I'll take I'm here to represent mixed martial arts, the UFC, myself. Give me a microphone and I'm going to do my best.
I love it. Before we go to Liverpool and talk about that a little bit, just quickly, I mean, when thinking about the job that you do, like, I've never commentated before, and obviously me and Casper aren't a part of the UFC team, but for some reason I always had this thought in my mind, like, after John's done commentating his show, he'll get a call from Dana White, or he'll get a call from someone up above, and they'll be like, hey, John, like, you did a really good job. Or they might have some criticism on the phone and be like, oh, John, you did a really good job, but at this point, we wanted you to say this one, wanted you to say that. So for people that don't know how it all works, talk us through it. Once you're done with an event, do you have someone from up above who sort of speaks to you after the event? Is it like a WWE situation where one of the earphones has like a producer in it and they sort of give you directions as you go through? How much feedback do you actually get from the UFC after you do an event?
Well, I'm quite conscientious with all of this stuff. I don't know how anyone else does it, but maybe a fault of mine, because I do go searching for that feedback from the people at the UFC. Like, how did I do? How was that? And I'll get an idea pretty early on if everyone was happy with it. And then maybe in the next couple of days, I might hear something from senior coordinating producer. I might not, but often I do. And I think we have a solid relationship now, and they understand that I want to get better. So I often skip the good parts anyway. I don't tend to indulge in that. It's really weird. It's the human condition. I've looked into this because we all try and better ourselves as well. And I've been one of those people that would go through the feedback and just see the negative, not the positive, just because I don't want to overindulge, become arrogant, complacent, or any of those kind of things. So yeah, I do get feedback and I will look to make changes. So I remember the feedback I got on London. There were a few things that I'll take on board, and when I get the chance in Singapore, I'm gonna make sure that the elements that were picked out, I'll over deliver on those.